My dad didn't mean to leave the line open. I'd called from my grandmother's kitchen, elbow deep in a drawer full of her old envelopes, just trying to find a stupid piece of paperwork. I was barely paying attention until I heard the rustle of his jacket, followed by my mother's voice, and then his.
Clear as day. She's a burden, he said.
Always has been. I froze. Completely. My fingers hovered over the drawer handle, the metal suddenly cold against my skin. Then came their laughter, light, thoughtless, rolling into a conversation I was never meant to hear. Their voices circled around plans for the house my grandmother left me. My house. Except in their minds, it wasn't mine at all. It was theirs to reshape, to use, to take. I didn't interrupt. I didn't call back. I stayed silent. But only long enough to decide exactly how this story would end. Growing up, I learned early that love in our house came with conditions. Our place sat on a narrow street in a working-class suburb outside the city, peeling paint, thin walls, and a kitchen table that rocked no matter how many times my dad jammed a folded piece of cardboard underneath it. Harold and Marilyn called it home. I never did. Every fight, every slammed cabinet, every reminder of everything they'd sacrificed hung in the air like smoke that never cleared. You think we have money to burn? My dad would snap any time I asked for something for school. Be grateful we keep a roof over your head. I was. Or I tried to be. But every Friday afternoon, I watched the clock like it was a lifeline. The moment the bell rang, I'd bolt for Grandma Lorraine's house across town, a quiet street, a wide porch, and a garden that always smelled like lavender and warm soil. She'd meet me at the door with a hug that didn't tighten when I breathed. She asked about my week like the answer mattered. Her home felt like air after holding mine in my chest for too long. In that house, I learned gentleness wasn't weakness. That silence didn't have to hurt. She taught me to plant flowers, to budget, to build a life slowly, intentionally, brick by brick instead of bitterness by bitterness. You're capable, Annabelle, she'd say. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. When she passed suddenly, the grief hollowed me out. But the reading of her will? That hollow cracked open. She left me the house, her house, fully paid off, worth nearly $900,000. My parents got a small amount of cash, just enough to burn through in a matter of weeks. After that, they started calling my place the family home, like the deed was just a cute suggestion. My mother wandered through rooms critiquing the paint colors I'd chosen. My father dragged his old, sagging recliner straight into the living room and planted it like a flag. I kept telling myself they were grieving, that letting them stay for a bit was the right thing. A bit turned into years. They didn't contribute a cent to the bills, the repairs, or the maintenance. But they always had opinions, always plans, always comments about how some families share everything. And when they planned their dream trip to Europe, they casually floated the idea of tapping the house's equity to fund it. You're doing well, my mother said one night, scraping her fork across her plate. It's time you give back. I didn't take out a loan for them, but out of old, familiar guilt I'd been trained to feel, I paid for most of their trip anyway. They left the country smiling, wrapped in the new scarves they'd bought for the flight, promising souvenirs I didn't ask for. And I stayed home, trying to convince myself that generosity wasn't the same thing as being used. The day everything shifted was so ordinary it almost felt like a joke. I'd spent the morning showing listings across town, and came home to a slow drip under the kitchen sink, a tiny leak my dad claimed he'd fixed months ago. I needed the warranty info for the faucet, one of the few things he'd actually installed himself. So I called him.
Just a simple call.
A practical one. And then the line stayed open. And everything changed. It's just a question. A simple, harmless question. Nothing that should have detonated my entire life. My dad answered from somewhere loud. Clinking glasses, street noise, a burst of laughter that didn't sound like it came from someone tired or stressed. He sounded irritated, like I'd ruined the moment. We're heading to dinner, he said. Check the drawer in the den. Should be under kitchen. I thanked him, told him to enjoy his night. He grumbled something I couldn't catch. Then came the rustle of fabric, footsteps, my mother's voice, muffled but unmistakable. I waited for the click. There should have been a click. But instead, "Who is that?" my mother asked. "Annabelle," he said, dripping annoyance, like even saying my name cost him something. Always something wrong with the house. My breath caught. They hadn't hung up. "Well," my mother sighed, "that's what happens when she gets handed a home she didn't earn. Your mother should have left it to us. We would have used it wisely." I gripped the countertop hard enough to feel the vibration of the dripping faucet. My grandmother had trusted me. She knew what she was doing. Hearing them twist that into something selfish, something unearned, scraped at a place I didn't want to admit existed. My father's voice sharpened. "Once we're back, we're going to sit her down about our retirement. She needs to understand that the house is our future. It's ridiculous, it's only in her name." My chest tightened. I'd suspected resentment. Quietly. In passing. I'd never imagined there was a plan. My mother lowered her voice, just barely. "She feels guilty so easily. Just push a little. She'll sign whatever we need. Mention Dr. Bills. That always gets her." Dr. Bills. My worst pressure point. They knew that. My stomach dropped. This wasn't concern. This wasn't care. This was strategy. "And if she resists," my father added, casual as weather, "remind her what we sacrificed for her. She owes us. By next year, the deed will have our names on it." My ears rang. My vision tunneled. But they still weren't finished. "She's always been a burden," my father said. "From the moment she was born." Then came his laugh. Then hers. And something inside me, something small and old and tired, broke with a clean snap. I don't remember ending the call. I only remember sliding down to the kitchen floor, back pressed against the cabinets, the dripping faucet tapping out a slow, steady rhythm while every memory I'd ever held in my hands rearranged itself into something I couldn't unsee. Every criticized decision, every guilt trip, every reminder of sacrifice. None of it had been love. It had been leverage. I replayed their words until humiliation burned itself dry and the heat beneath it sharpened into clarity. If they saw me as a burden, then I didn't owe them anything. I wiped my face, stood, grabbed my laptop. I didn't scream. I didn't confront. I didn't call back. I did something far more dangerous. I began to plan. For 3 days, I moved through my life like a ghost. I called in sick with a fever I didn't have because the truth was simpler. I couldn't trust my voice not to break in front of anyone. Every time I tried to make coffee, check a listing, answer an email, it came back. "She's always been a burden." Said like it was nothing. Said like it had always been true. By the 4th morning, the numbness cracked. I opened my laptop and typed one name. Vivian Hale, the family property attorney I'd worked with through clients. Sharp. Calm. Unshakable. The kind of woman who didn't blink at messy family dynamics. Vivian didn't react when I said the deed was solely mine. She didn't react when I explained my parents had lived rent-free for years. But when I repeated the words I'd heard through that open line, her jaw tightened, just barely. "You are under no legal obligation to house your parents," she said. "The property is yours. Their residency gives them no ownership." And she leaned in then, her voice steady, but edged with something protective. "If you want to end that arrangement," Vivian said, "you can. Document everything. And don't warn them until you're ready." Simple. Factual. But to me, it felt like someone cracked open a window in a room I hadn't realized I'd been suffocating in for years. That afternoon, I called Ethan Shaw, one of the few colleagues who'd ever treated me like an equal. "I need a discreet sale," I said. "No listing. No sign. Fast." He didn't ask a single question. He just exhaled. "I know 2 off-market buyers looking in your area," he said. "We can hit around 980 if the timing works." Exactly the number I needed. Once the first domino fell, the rest moved fast. I walked through every room with a notebook, dividing everything into 3 categories. Mine. Theirs. Uncertain. I wasn't leaving space for accusations, or for them to claim anything was misunderstanding. Boxes lined the hardwood floors, neat rows of taped, labeled order. My belongings were marked for the movers. Theirs were stacked separately, waiting for the plan forming in my head like a blueprint. I rented a storage unit under their names and paid 6 months in advance. I arranged a moving team to transfer everything there the same day. My own belongings would be delivered to a furnished short-term apartment 2 hours away. Then came the rest of the clean cuts. New bank accounts, updated passwords, a new phone number, a new email. Every task felt like severing a thread I'd spent my entire life tangled in. On the final night before the movers arrived, I walked slowly through the house, my house, for the last time. The empty walls echoed faintly, like the place was already beginning to forget us. Outside, the garden was waking up. The flowers Grandma Lorraine taught me to plant were just starting to open. I crouched and touched one soft petal. "I'm not the burden you thought," I whispered. I didn't know if I was saying it to them or finally saying it to myself. The next morning, when the moving truck pulled away with my boxes, I didn't look back. I disappeared quietly, legally, completely. My parents landed on a warm Thursday afternoon in early fall, the kind of day when the sun hangs low and the air smells faintly of dry leaves. I knew their exact flight schedule because they'd emailed it to me, expecting me to pick them up. I imagined them stepping off the plane, rested from wine tastings and boat tours, dragging luggage covered in stickers from places I'd never been, places I'd funded. They had no idea the world they were returning to. At exactly 4:12 p.m., my old neighbor, Mrs. Dawson, texted me a single line. "They're here." I sat in my car outside my new apartment 2 hours away, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went pale. I didn't need to be at the house. I already knew the script. They'd pull into the driveway still laughing. They'd notice my car wasn't there. They'd assume I was running errands. They'd haul their bags to the door, juggling souvenirs I'd indirectly paid for. Then Harold would take out his key. He'd slide it into the lock, turn it, and hear nothing but a dull, empty click. The thought steadied me. I closed my eyes and breathed in the quiet of my new life. Later that evening, my phone rang. Mrs. Dawson again. I answered on the first ring. "Annabelle," she whispered, barely containing herself. "They're losing it. Your dad tried the key 4 times. Your mom's banging on the door like someone's hiding inside." I could picture it perfectly. The disbelief, the confusion, the anger blooming beneath it. "What are they doing now?" I asked, my voice strangely calm. "They're walking around the house checking windows." "Oh, your dad's saying you must have changed the locks without permission." "Annabelle, sweetheart, this." She stopped, and I could hear her turning away from the phone, watching something unfold in real time. "This is something else," Mrs. Dawson whispered. She was right, and it was only the beginning. An hour later, the first voicemail arrived. "Annabelle, what the hell is going on? The key doesn't work. Call me back immediately." My father's voice, clipped, offended, already certain he was the one being wronged. 5 minutes later, my mother's came through. "Honey, this must be a misunderstanding. We're worried. Where are you? Why is the house empty? Please call us." Not a crack of self-reflection. Not a molecule of accountability. Just shock that the world had finally stopped bending around them. Then came the voicemail I'd been waiting for. "We found a little note." A burden did this? Really? Is that supposed to be funny? You can't just sell our home out from under us. Expect a lawyer. Every sentence dripping with entitlement. Every word confirming I had done the right thing. They didn't call again that night. But I knew them. Silence only meant escalation. I didn't have to wait long. At 10 a.m. the next morning, my phone buzzed with a message from my office. "Your parents are here. They're yelling." The boss asked them to leave. "Do you need help?" Heat rose up my neck. Even now, they believed embarrassment might scare me back into place. I called the office, voice tight with apology. My boss cut me off gently. "Take all the time you need, Annabelle. They won't be allowed back in." It was the first time someone outside my grandmother had fully, unhesitatingly taken my side. That evening, my new number, shared with almost no one, rang. I almost let it go to voicemail. Curiosity tugged harder. Tomorrow. My father's voice, clipped and simmering. 10 o'clock, Maple Street Cafe. If you don't show, we're going to your workplace again. And we won't be polite. He hung up before I could respond. My pulse thudded hard, but fear didn't come. Something colder did. The clarity I'd felt the moment I heard that open call. I wasn't showing up as their daughter this time. I was showing up as the woman who finally understood the cost of letting people walk through her boundaries like open doors. The next morning, I arrived at the cafe 15 minutes late on purpose. The place buzzed with life. Espresso machines hissing, silverware clinking, soft conversations weaving through the air. A public space. A safe space. Harold and Marilyn sat in a corner booth. My mother looked smaller than I remembered. My father looked angrier. Both stiffened when they saw me. You finally decided to show, my father snapped. I set my phone on the table, deliberately, letting the gesture settle between us like a warning. I'm here, I said. But I won't be shouted at. Say what you came to say. What did you do to our home? My mother burst out, her voice trembling. Why would you sell it without telling us? We lived there. It was never your home, I said quietly. You lived there because I allowed it, and you repaid that by planning to take it. My father leaned forward. We were discussing our future. You completely misunderstood. I tapped my phone screen. Their voices spilled into the booth, unmistakable and sharp. She's a burden. Once she signs the house over, we're set. Use guilt. She falls for that.
She owes us.
My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father's face drained, then flushed a violent red. How dare you record us? You called me. I cut in. You forgot to hang up. I heard every word, and it showed me exactly where I stand in this family. My mother started crying soft, trembling, practiced. Once, it would have cracked me open.
Not now.
I paid the bills, I said. I maintained the home. I funded a vacation I couldn't even afford for myself. And you still saw me as a burden. Their silence stretched, brittle, charged, revealing. And then something flickered across my father's face, something I recognized immediately. Not remorse. Calculation. I watched their tears slow, their breath settle, the performance finally slipping. So here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady in a way it had never been with them. I'm done. No more money. No more support. No more guilt. If you contact my workplace again, I will take legal action. If you show up at my home, you'll meet security. If you keep harassing me, you'll meet my attorney. My father hissed, You can't just cut us out of your life. I'm not cutting you out, I replied, rising from the booth. You pushed me out a long time ago. I'm just finally walking away. My mother's voice broke into a trembling whisper. Where will we go? What are we supposed to do? That, I said with a calm I didn't even know I owned, is something you'll have to figure out on your own. I slipped my phone into my bag and stepped out of the booth. Neither of them reached for me. Neither of them said my name. And when I pushed open the cafe door and stepped into the crisp fall air, I didn't look back. The silence afterward was almost strange. No voicemails. No emails. No surprise appearances at my office. Just quiet. Heavy at first, almost unfamiliar, and then slowly, beautifully, peaceful. In my new Richmond townhouse, I moved like someone learning to breathe correctly for the first time. It was smaller, simpler, but every inch belonged to me. No tension clinging to the walls. No footsteps that made my chest tighten. No reminders of who I had been trained to be. Work felt different too. Clearer. Lighter. My clients noticed. My boss noticed. Hell, I noticed. Without the constant emotional drain, I had energy again. For my job. For my friends. For myself. Therapy helped peel back layers I'd learned to survive under. Dr. Caroline Brooks gave names to things I'd always felt but never dared to speak aloud. Financial abuse. Emotional manipulation. Coercive guilt. Saying them didn't erase them, but it took their teeth out. For the first time, they weren't secrets. They were facts. One afternoon, while sorting an old box, I found an envelope addressed in Grandma Lorraine's handwriting. I'd read the letter before, but this time, the words landed deeper. Never doubt your worth. Never let anyone take from you what you've earned. For the first time in my life, I believed her. So when the local community center asked if I'd teach a workshop for first-time home buyers about protecting themselves financially, I said yes immediately. Helping others avoid what I'd endured felt like stitching something broken back together. I wasn't the burden. I was the one who finally put the weight down. A year later, I stood in the garden outside my townhouse, smaller than my grandmother's, but blooming just the same. The wind was soft. The sky was wide. And for the first time, my life felt like it finally fit. I didn't know if my parents would ever change. And I wasn't waiting for them to. Peace didn't come from fixing them. It came from choosing myself. And if you've ever walked away to protect your own well-being, you're not alone. Share your story in the comments. Tell me what part hit you the hardest. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for more stories that stay with you long after the screen fades to black.